Welcome to Cecil TV. I'm Trista Polo, and I'm here with Justinian Dispenza. We're going to be talking about Get on the Bus, a documentary that started in Kent County and is going to some very important places. This is a very important documentary. I can't wait to share it with you. Welcome, Justinian.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you. So, start us off. What is Get on the Bus?
So this is a story of 42 pilgrims who left at 3:30 in the morning from sleepy Chestertown, Maryland, to go 5 days on a civil rights bus tour, stopping in Birmingham, Alabama, to learn about a church bombing during the civil rights movement, to walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, like John Lewis and Martin Luther King Jr. did, to go to Atlanta to see the King Center and his gravesite, as well as other civil rights sites around the Deep South. And this is the story of these people's experiences, what they came into the trip feeling, what they learned during the trip, and a little bit of context for the idea and issues still around race in the country today.
Wow, that's a very powerful trek. And how long, over what period of time was all of this taking place?
Yeah, so about 6 months before the trip, Phil Dutton, who is one of the founders of the James Taylor Justice Coalition, someone was lynched in Chestertown, Maryland, an African American in the 1800s, and this coalition wanted to sort of raise awareness for this and also shine light on a troubled past. You know, the young man was lynched across the street from the courthouse, right downtown. And also Manery's Dream Alliance, Paul II and Doncella Wilson had been wanting to get a civil rights bus trip together to sort of educate Kent County youth about civil rights, where we came from, where we're going, why it was an important movement, and the rights that were gained from these struggles. And so the trip came together relatively quickly for how logistically complex it was. But about 6 months from start planning date, we got on the bus and spent 5 days traveling in the Deep South, and then proceeded to start editing to create the film that you'll be seeing soon.
Wow, that's a lot of really important stops.
Mhm.
What went into choosing them? Because I'm sure these aren't the only important historical moments to highlight.
One thing that we found when we went to the Equal Justice Initiative Museum, it was one of our last days on the trip, is that this isn't just an issue in Kent County, Maryland. There were thousands of extrajudicial lynchings across the United States from before the Civil War into after the Civil War, right? It didn't just fix everything. And so we could have stopped at any county in the South and some counties in the North to partake in this experience. But I think what the um, people organizing the trip wanted to do is give us a context of sort of the beginning, the middle, the end of the movement, as well as from different perspectives. Like one of the churches we stopped at, the 16th Street Baptist Church, uh, some racists blew up 4 little girls with a dynamite bomb. And this isn't a story that you think about or hear about a lot, but it's an important context for just how heartless people were during this movement. And so these were I think the biggest sites that you could go to um, that still made sense logistically. Because, right, we can spend months on a trip like this, but 5 days was plenty of time for us to get a real deep dive into the civil rights movement. And as you'll see in the film, people had a lot to say, even with the trip only 5 days long.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Now, how were the people that went on the trip? How were they chosen?
So there were the organizers from the different organizations, people from Sumner Hall, people from the Presbyterian Church of Chestertown or the Unitarian Universalist Church who were helping to fund it, people from Manery's Dream Alliance, the organization that works with a lot of Black youth in Kent County, and then people from the James Taylor Justice Coalition, and then members of the community, right? Every seat on the bus was full except for one where I had my camera equipment so I could get to stuff quickly. But we were a pretty diverse group. So there were white, black, young, old, male, woman, straight, gay. The youngest person on the trip, I think, was 11 years old, and the oldest person was 82. So it was a pretty nice segment of people in Kent County to get on this bus. And again, you're stuck in a really emotionally intense space for that long with strangers, you're going to build bonds. And so it was amazing as a filmmaker to be able to go on that trip and be changed myself, but also to see the changes in friendships that were built among people who would never have gotten to know each other otherwise.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. And I'm thinking about that, like when you're not on the bus, were you all still together? Was there time to kind of decompress and debrief a little bit? Because there's a lot of emotion probably building up during those different visits.
So this isn't my first rodeo doing documentaries. I love it. I do weddings and commercial work as well in the region, but I usually am able to sort of separate myself from the subject matter of what I'm working on. But there was no, we were all in the same hotel. A lot of us would get dinner together, or we'd all walk within a few blocks. So if you went to Chipotle, guess who else was at Chipotle? People from the trip. And then of course we were all traveling these facilities and these museums and these monuments together as well. And it was tough. There were some pretty tough days. We did a decompression every night, and this is really to speak highly of Paul and Doncello, the trip organizers. They had licensed therapists who had come onto the trip as well. And so we'd lead, not we, but they would lead exercises each night about what did you feel today? Like, how did you process your emotions? This is, we had a really heavy day today. Let's all take a deep breath. And then they had journals for the young people as well, so they could journal every day about their feelings. And so they really did a great job of trying to take this generational trauma of the history of slavery in the United States and dive deeply into it without adding more trauma onto the participants.
That's so important. And I love that
Hmm.
there was opportunity to journal, just to kind of process your own feelings alone, and
Hmm.
also opportunities to do it as a group because it was a group experience.
Exactly.
So there was some connection there as well. Now, this, you keep mentioning all the different people and organizations that have
Hmm.
brought this together. This is clearly a large
It takes a
project.
village, yeah.
Yeah, that you are one piece of. Can you share a little bit about the background? How did it all come about originally, and what organizations brought this to light, brought this to fruition?
Yeah, sure. So it started as a conversation, I think, between the equal or the James Taylor Justice Coalition in Chestertown, this group that's trying to raise awareness about this lynching that happened in our community, and Maneri's Dream Alliance, where they just were sort of spitballing ideas. And they said, well, let's go on a bus trip. Okay, well, what do we need? We need a bus, we need this. And so as the trip became more and more realistic, more organizations said, ooh, this is something important for right now. Um, the trip was in the summer of 2022, a very chaotic time politically in the United States, and also a lot of back and forth about critical race theory and how we should perceive the past and tell students about the future. So the more solid it became, the more organizations sort of threw their hat in and said, we want to help out. What can we do? And then I came into the process about 2.5 months before it, where someone who was on the trip reached out and said, hey, can you take some professional photos of it? And then one of the churches said, well, we have money, we want to donate. What's something you need, for this trip that you don't have money for yet? And they said, oh, we want to make a documentary about it. And so it started as me going just with one camera and ended up coming with $15,000, $20,000 of gear and an assistant to really help tell this story. And it's a beautiful story because we didn't go in with an agenda. We didn't go in with any preconceived notions. I didn't know most of these people. They were just vulnerable enough and compassionate enough to offer their thoughts and opinions. And so the story sort of tells a lot of different little pieces of people's lives where there's not one main character, but it's a lot of people sort of processing this experience together. And it really does feel like you're on the bus with them.
Yeah, I love that you say it feels like you're on the bus with them, because that was one thing I was wondering is what's the experience of watching
Hmm.
the documentary? What can I expect as a viewer?
Yeah, I think I think it really depends on you as a person, right? Because we interviewed enough different people from different walks of life that there's no one main character for you to identify with. So you may identify with the older white couple who are pastors and feel called by God to do this, or maybe the young black boys who are in seventh grade and not learning about this in school, or maybe one of the therapists trying to work through sort of trauma in their own family and in the context of this trip. So there's a lot of different perspectives, but I think it shows a great teaser to what you could learn, see, and experience on this trip, but a lot of the museums wouldn't let us film with our professional gear inside the museums. So we don't give away, it's not, this isn't like a virtual tour of a museum. It's a human experience through the context of this trip.
I love that because it's also then a little bit of a preview of places we might want to ourselves as a viewer visit to have
Exactly.
our own experience, to get our own insights.
And you can see the film and people, we've done some screenings at film festivals and we had our premiere recently and stuff, and people tear up sort of in the documentary watching it and in the documentary actually while we're filming them. But some of the sites that you go to, you just feel a presence. And I think that that's articulated well in the documentary where you see this. And although it's a tough part of our history, you don't feel sad, you feel empowered to go and visit yourself. And I will say, as a filmmaker, I try to keep myself separate from the subject matter, but I would be lying if I said I didn't cry at least once on this trip where you just saw something and thought, how could people be so cruel?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough subject matter, and
Hmm.
there's definitely personal experiences that we can put to
Hmm.
in our own history. So
But I
being
think
able to see it. Yeah, go
just
ahead.
because it's tough doesn't mean that we need to either brush it under the rug or talk about it all the time. And I think this film is a really great conversation starter for people. It's being shown at retirement homes or in front of events for lawyers and stuff to sort of start that conversation about, what is the experience with race in our country and what does it mean to sort of look into the past and also be in the present.
And you have gotten some accolades so far, as
Yeah.
I see on the website. So can you share a little bit about the attention
Yeah.
it's been getting?
So none of us were really expecting this because none of us set out to make a movie that would be in film festivals, but I was encouraged by a friend to just submit to a couple local ones. You'll see. It's an hour and 6 minutes long, so it is a feature film, and we've been blown away by the response. We just finished up the Ocean City Film Festival where it was screened. We finished up the Maryland International Film Festival in Hagerstown. It's also at a festival down in Atlanta. And I just found out a little bit before this interview that we are in another film festival in Washington, D.C. in June. So it's really exciting. Paul and Doncella, two of the people in the documentary, have come to one of the festivals and we got to do a Q&A with them afterwards and really have a conversation because that's what we hope this film does is starts a conversation.
That's great, and congratulations. I
Thank
love you.
you. It's cool.
Just,
It's a little weird
yeah,
to like talk about your art in a movie theater with a bunch of strangers, but I'm getting more used to it. I will be honest. It's getting better.
that's great. That's great. And maybe this is like the first of
Yeah,
many,
who knows?
a
I
new
mean,
videography adventure for you to start in your life.
yeah, and I keep thinking like, what's the next story, right? I want to sit on my laurels, of creating this piece of art, and it seems like it's being well received, but like there's a lot more interesting stories even in the sleepy Eastern Shore of Maryland to tell or in other
Yes.
places too. So I'm excited for the future, definitely.
Yes, absolutely. So there was something I was going to ask you. Oh, so as you're creating this, you've
Hmm.
talked a lot about the emotional roller coaster that you and the viewers have
Hmm.
had, but that this has kind of given you a little bit of a bug, like there are more stories to tell. What would you say has been the highlight for you as the director to put this together?
I think two highlights. So the logistical challenge of creating a story this big, filming for 5 days and all the footage and filming before events. And, there was a lot to go into it. And just, it's like when you build a house from the ground up, you feel proud at the end of it. But in the middle of it, sometimes you're banging your head on the desk, like, why didn't we get that clip? So that's one is the highlight of seeing the finished house. And the second one is someone came up to me at the premiere who I'd never met before and said, "Hey, you directed this film, right?" Yeah. Uh, I've been feeling really hopeless about the future and like we're moving in the wrong direction, in our progress in society. And this film has given me hope to feel like there are positive things happening, even if I don't see them. I'm going to sleep better tonight. And that to me is just a really human compliment. It's not, you did a great job. It's like, that's a real thing that's sunk in. So I've treasured that in my heart, definitely.
Oh my gosh, to be able to hear that you're giving someone hope.
Mm.
And probably they're not the only person that's experiencing that. They're just the only
Mm.
one that said it out loud.
It feels great. It feels
Yeah.
like I'm on the right track, and it feels like the film hit where I think it needed to hit.
Yeah, for sure. So on the other side of that, because we are both sides, we are yin and yang.
Hmm.
What would you say was the hardest thing for you in this journey of putting this from the idea to
Hmm.
in film festivals?
Yeah, so I think it was figuring out how to tell a story, right? It's not a documentary where we're filming people who are going to try and go to the moon, and they either get to the moon or they don't. And we know this is the chief engineer and this is the chief astronaut. And this film was, hey, we've got 40 to 50 people getting on a bus who don't know each other for 5 days, and you need to make a movie about it. So finding people who are comfortable to talk, or building up trust and connection with people who are on camera so that they feel comfortable to share what they're actually feeling, and then sort of still telling a story that's compelling for an audience when you're not following a traditional narrative structure. So that was tough to sort of get there, but I think we did a pretty good job with it.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And I'm
Mm,
looking forward to being able to watch the whole thing.
mm.
So, any final thoughts? Anything else you want us to know that didn't come up that you do
Yeah,
not want to be missed?
our executive producer wrote a blurb for me to share with your viewers. Uh, anyone, and I'm just going to read it, right? Because he said it right. So
Sure.
anyone interested in learning more about the film Get on the Bus can go to the following website, which has a description of the film as well as a trailer: chesapeakeheartland.org/get on the bus. And there's hyphens. So chesapeakeheartland.org get/get hyphen on hyphen the hyphen bus. If people are interested in showing a film to your group or organization, there's a short form on the website to fill out and submit. The information in the form will go to Philip Dutton, the executive producer, who will respond to your requests and help you get that film screened, or give you an opportunity to watch it if you'd like to watch it in your house.
Beautiful. You did a great job with that blurb. It had
There
all
you go, Phil. Yep.
awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing just a little bit, a taste of Get on the Bus. And I think that it sounds like it's really making a very important impact. And so I wish you all the best, everyone that was associated with the documentary,
Absolutely.
all the best as it continues to find its voice.
We'll see what happens in the future. I'm excited. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.